As we get ready for the big tariff announcement from President Trump this afternoon, two main areas are in focus for investors: autos and food. And Phil LeBeau has a look at the automakers that could get hit the hardest by the sector. I didn't know initially. I thought you were going to do food too, and I was going to prohibit that because it's just not something that we're going to get from you, Phil, because it's not moving usually unless it's alive. But first, Courtney Reagan joins us from the grocery store Leonard's, Stu Leonard's in Yonkers, New York. Hey, Courtney.
Hi, Joe. Yeah, good morning. So unlike tariffed clothing, fresh produce can't be stockpiled in advance, nor can it be grown just anywhere. And 51% of the fresh fruit sold in the U.S. is imported from Mexico, 2% from Canada, while 69% of the fresh vegetables sold here are imported from Mexico, 20% from Canada. That's according to the latest data from the USDA. But the country's largest grocers, they're not detailing the impact for them or consumers, at least until they know a little bit more. I contacted 18 of them. Only one of them got back to me. Everyone else had no comment or referred me to a lobby group. So the Retail Industry Leaders Association Vice President for International Trade, Blake Hardin, says items like tomatoes, raspberries, and cucumbers from Mexico and cooking oils and maple syrup from Canada will be hit with hefty tariffs. President Trump promised to bring down inflation, but if these tariffs go into effect, they will raise costs for American families at the grocery checkout and when they dine out. Now, grocers typically have a very thin margin between 1% and 3%. So any cost increases are very often passed on to the end consumers in price. However, Goldman Sachs does note that consumers don't historically push back until grocery inflation rises about 4% from the prior month. And while certain categories may end up seeing higher spikes from these tariffs, Goldman does expect that the overall average basket will maintain its sort of long-term average when it comes to pricing in historical trends. Now, Stu Leonard shoppers here, they might actually fare a little bit better. Stu Leonard says that just 4% of its total grocery sales are going to be impacted in so much as that they are imported from Canada or Mexico. But for those impacted items, like, for instance, this pepper or this avocado or even the tequila here in its wine and liquor store, that will eventually be passed on to consumers. Phil, what does it look like in the auto sector?
We're going to find out pretty quickly, Courtney, once we work through the inventory that are out in dealer lots right now. And that'll probably be by the middle of May, I would imagine. For the automakers, the question is, how much can they produce here in this country to mitigate the impact of the new trade war? And that means who has the most or the least amount of production in the United States for the vehicles that they sell here. These are some of the largest automakers who have some of the lowest percentage of vehicles built in this country. And we're not showing you everybody. Look, Jaguar Land Rover makes nothing here. We're not putting them up there. We're showing you the largest ones. Stellantis, GM, Toyota. Look at Mercedes-Benz and Hyundai, both under 40%. Speaking of Mercedes-Benz, there was a report out of Europe yesterday that the company is thinking about restricting some of the models that it ships over here. Maybe not sending low-end models here because it would be such a huge hit to their profit margins if they had to slap a higher price on them. We'll see if that happens. On the flip side, look at those companies that make the most percentage of their vehicles sold here in this country. The three EV companies, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid. Ford, almost 80% of the vehicles it sells in this country are built in this country. And then you have Honda as well. Reminder that yesterday we got the Q1 auto sales overall, and they were much better than expected. 17.76 was the sales rate. And Tesla, we're showing you Tesla because as you look at Tesla, we're going to be getting those Q1 delivery numbers likely within the next hour or two. And the expectation is that these are going to be ugly numbers, guys. Those numbers, the FactSet consensus was 408,000. The reality is the street account with analysts say it's going to be closer to 350 to 370. So nobody is expecting much when these numbers are announced likely within the next hour to hour and a half.
All right. So thanks, Courtney. It's all based on what we hear at 4 o'clock. Phil, you don't have any additional info or input on what to expect at this point. We just have to wait.
Correct. We have to wait. And the autos have to a certain extent, we know the messaging that is there, though we do know that some of the CEOs have been still talking with the Trump administration saying, look, do you need to have every part that is manufactured in Canada or Mexico be slapped with a tariff? Or can the lower cost parts, like wire harnesses out of Mexico, do those have to be hit? Anywhere where they can make some progress in terms of limiting the impact, that's what they're trying to do.
Courtney, tell us what's going to happen. I'm counting on you.
I mean, look, so I walked around the grocery store here. This entire basket is all from Mexico, right? So there's fruits and vegetables. And when I say I really just walked through the produce aisle, I've got another one here at my feet. And if I had another pair of arms, I would lift it up to show you the products from Canada. But I think it's going to be nearly impossible for us not to see prices increase at the grocery store. What's interesting, though, is if you have a retailer, say, like a Target or a Walmart, maybe they want to hold the price on an avocado, but maybe they raise it somewhere else, right? That's sort of how they work with their portfolio of items. For instance, Target told us at its investor day that during the holidays, they want to keep their ornaments at $3. They don't want them to be $3.60. So maybe that additional 60 cents that they have to make up from the higher cost of tariffed items will get tacked on to a Christmas stocking. So it's very possible that could happen as well. It may not be exactly clear where those higher costs come out for us, product by product, but I think by and large they will have to, especially when you're talking about grocery items. I mean, I mentioned that groceries operate on a very, very thin margin, somewhere between 1% and 3%. And that 3% really was just sort of during the pandemic when so many of us were going to the store as opposed to dining out. So I think we could be in for a little bit of sticker shock, most especially in the produce aisle if these tariffs come through at around that 25% level for Mexico and Canada.